नमः सर्वेभ्यः। व्योम-संस्कृत-पाठशालायाः कौशलसंवर्धनं संस्कृतव्याकरणं निबन्धलेखनं च इत्यस्य प्रक्रमस्य अद्य 39 पाठः। अद्य वयं समासानाम् अध्ययनम् आरभामहे। गुरुरेव गतिर्गुरुमेव भजे गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोर्मतिरस्ति गुरौ मम पाहि गुरो। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। समासाः इति नूतनं प्रकरणम् अद्य व्याकरणवर्गे आरभ्यते। विशिष्य चित्तूरुसभायाः समासकुसुमावली इति लघु पुस्तिका अस्ति। तदाधारेण एव वयम् अस्मिन् वर्गे समासानाम् अध्ययनं कुर्मः। तत्र पुस्तकं कुत्र लभ्यते इति यदि दिदृक्षा अस्ति तर्हि अस्माकं कोर्स् पेज् मध्ये, so I think I had shown it last week also, but let me just repeat. So this is the course contents. So right at the beginning we have something called textbooks for the course, under which we have completed Sandhi Viveka. Next is Samaasakusumaavali. There is a typed version which has been provided by Srimati Vishalakshi Shankaran, who is a very dedicated teacher of the Chittoor syllabus. The original scanned version is also here. So if you want a hard copy, I suggest you take a printout of the PDF. Another note, if you had downloaded earlier, just yesterday I discovered that one shloka was missing in the earlier version. We have added that and uploaded a revised version. You can download. If you have already taken a printout, don't worry. When we come to that shloka, you can just write it down. Okay. So please take this because we will be studying purely using this book. And we will be covering mainly whatever has been covered here. So तत्र आदौ प्रथमः प्रश्नः समासः नाम कः? अनेकपदानाम् एकपदत्वव्यवहारः यत्र भवति स समासः इति पुस्तके दीयते। अनेकस्य पदस्य एकपदीभवनं समासः इत्यपि उच्यते. Where multiple padas merge to become a single pada. Vibhaktiyadi lopena. So how does that happen? We will see a bit later. So there is a specific process which helps merge multiple padas into a single pada. And samasa is one of the most distinctive features of Samskrita. Tatra sarvasu bhashasu समस्तपदानि प्रायेण भवन्ति. आङ्ग्लभाषायामपि भवति. For example, when we say blackboard, it is a typical samastapada. Black is an independent word. Board is an independent word. But when I use the word blackboard to indicate a single object, a board that is black in color, it is a typical example of a samasa or a compound word. प्रायः सर्वासु भाषासु एवं लघु समासाः दृश्यन्ते. So mostly in English we see two words or max maybe 3 words coming together. But the unique feature of Samskrita is that you can go on combining words according to their meaning to make very long samasas. So samasas with multiple components is a very unique feature of Samskrita. It helps in condensing is one information, as we will see later. It is also a unique style. It lends to uh, the language itself. We see many kavyas, especially in Gadya Kavya, the usage of long samasas is more. Kintu Padya Kavyeshwapi bahudha drishyate. Bahutra even in shlokas, we find shlokas where the entire pada is one word, or sometimes two padas together combined to form a single word. Bahutra tatha drishyate. Atayeva samasanam jnanam bhasha jnane atyantam mukhyam bhavati. Without understanding the samasas, we will not be able to parse the language or understand the words used in any piece of literature or shastra or vyakhyana anywhere. Okay. So Sandhi and Samasa are two key components. There is words. The basic building blocks are the independent words. Namapada Rupani, Kriyapada Rupani. But as we move ahead, so the Samasa becomes extremely important to understand. Tatra सरलम् उदाहरणम् आदौ पश्यामः. किमुच्यते? अनेकानि पदानि भवन्ति. तेषां मेलनेन यत्र एकं पदं भवति सः समासः इत्युच्यते. The opposite of samasa is vyasa. व्यास महर्षिः व्यासः इत्युक्ते व्यास महर्षेः स्मरणमेव भवति. किन्तु व्यासः किं कृतवान्? वेदराशिः एकः एव आसीत्, तस्य विभागं कृत्वा वेदचतुष्टय रूपेण व्यवस्थां कृतवान्. अत एव तस्य व्यासः वेदव्यासः इति नाम. अतः व्यासः इत्युक्ते विभागः इत्यर्थः. So vyasa means separation. We call it vyasta prayogaha. Vyasta prayogaha ityukte padani prithak prithak bhavanti. Samasaha अथवा समस्त प्रयोगः इत्युक्ते पदानि मिलित्वा एकमेव पदं भवति. उदाहरणार्थं सीतायाः पतिं नमामि इति एकं वाक्यं, सीतापतिं नमामि इति अपरं वाक्यम्. अत्र सीतायाः पतिम् इति यत्र पदद्वयमस्ति, अत्र तु सीतापतिम् इति एकमेव पदमस्ति. अतः सीतापतिम् इति समासः इत्युच्यते. एवमेव कृष्णस्य समीपे गावः चरन्ति. अत्र 4 पदानि सन्ति. उपकृष्णं गावः चरन्ति इति वदामि चेत् समानः अर्थः. अत्र भेदः नास्ति. डोंट आस्क मी व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ उपकृष्णम्. अत्र कृष्णस्य समीपे इति यः अर्थः, स एव अर्थः उपकृष्णम् इति पदेन अपि उच्यते, किन्तु अत्र एकमेव पदम् अस्ति. सो वी आर रिफाइनिंग, कंडेन्सिंग आवर वे ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन. रामः, लक्ष्मणः, भरतः, शत्रुघ्नः च दशरथस्य पुत्राः. कति पदानि सन्ति? अत्र 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 पदानि सन्ति. यदि समासं कुर्मः, रामलक्ष्मणभरतशत्रुघ्नाः दशरथपुत्राः, पदद्वयमेव अस्ति. So where we had 7 independent words, padas or components, here we have 2 padas. Right? So there are 2 samasas which have been done here. So this is samasa. Aneka padanam, na ekam anekam. So aneka need not mean many. It is more than one. So it can be 2 or more than 2. So multiple words combined to form a single pada. That is called a samasa. Tatra samasasya jnanartham padam nama kim iti atyantam mukhyam bhavati. Because, see, if you just look at this, if you are looking at Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna, you still recognize four components, but I say this is a single pada. So when we say pada, it does not mean just a meaningful component. It means the technical definition of the pada as subantam or tingantam. Idam purvamapi drishtam subantam tingantam cha padam ityuchyate samskrite. Tatra subante pratika padikam bhavati tasmat sup pratyayah yojyante sup ante yasya tat subantam bhavati. Evam tingantam इत्यत्र धातुः प्रकृतिः भवति धातोः तिङ् प्रत्ययाः योज्यन्ते तिङ् अन्ते यस्य तत् तिङन्तं भवति समासे प्रायः सुबन्तानाम् एव मेलनं भवति तदेकं ज्ञातव्यं तिङन्तस्य समासः न भवति. You can take that as a 99.9% correct statement. There may be extremely rare cases where you do find a tinganta in a samasa, but for normal use, it is fair enough to say that samasa is combining subantas. Okay, so tinganta is actually, it is like a king. There can be only one king, where you can have like multiple ministers. Vakye tingantam pradhanam bhavati. So tingantas don't usually combine with each other. They stand alone, whereas the subantas can come together to form samasas. So samase kim bhavati prayah aneka subantapadanam melanena. So we will refine a bit. Earlier we said anekasya padasya ekapadi bhavanam. So anekasya subantapadasya eka subantapadi bhavanam. So samasa in majority of cases is combining the subantas, one, two or more subantas to form a new single subanta pada. So the raw materials are also subantas. The end product is also a subanta. So in samasa, we are operating almost exclusively in the domain of subantas, not in the domain of tingantas. उदाहरणम् अत्रैव इदृष्टं सीतायाः सीतायाः पतिं नमामि तत्र त्रीणि पदानि सन्ति कीदृशानि पदानि सीतायाः इति सुबन्तपदम् आकारान्तः स्त्रीलिङ्गः सीता शब्दः याः इति षष्ठी विभक्ति एकवचन प्रत्ययः. So identifying the pada, that is the vibhakti of the pada, is critical, because I noticed even when we were studying sandhi, there were some sandhis which said samase, asamase. There were a lot of confusions. Is it a samasa or not a samasa? How do we identify it? So the only way to identify is this. Okay. So Sitayaha iti subantam tatra vibhakti pratyayah asti. Why do I say this is a padam? Because there is a pratipadika to which a supratyaya, a vibhakti pratyaya is added, because of which this is a subanta padam. Evameva patim ityapi subantam padam इकारान्तः पुल्लिङ्गः पतिशब्दः द्वितीया विभक्तौ ekavachanantam. So the m part of it, technically it is not the m, there is an there, but there is a sandhi because of which it is done. So, but we do hear the supratyaya part of it. Okay. Namami iti tu tingantam padamasti. नम धातोः लट्लकारे उत्तमपुरुष एकवचनान्तं पदम्। एवम् अत्र त्रीणि पदानि सन्ति यत्र सुबन्तपदं तु द्वयम् अस्ति। द्वे सुबन्तपदे. There are two independent subantas here. यदा तु सीतापतिं नमामि इति उच्यते तत्र एकमेव सुबन्तम् अस्ति. Though the meaning is the same, here the word is one word, which is Sitapatim. Sita is not an independent word here. It does not have an identity of its own separately. To have an identity of its own, it needs a supratyaya or a ting pratyaya. It is like, dependents in a family. There is one, say, an earning member or a head, and there are dependent members. So there is only one subanta here. Okay, one supratyaya. Okay, and Sitapati is a merged word. So अत्र एकं सुबन्तं एकं तिङन्तं. नमामि इति तिङन्तं तु तथैव अस्ति. सुबन्तेषु पूर्वं यत्र द्वे सुबन्तपदे आस्ताम् अधुना तु एकमेव सुबन्तपदम् अस्ति. अतः अयं समासः इत्युच्यते. So where you can identify different components in a word, but they have only one combined supratyaya. That is the identification of a samasa. Don't just look at Sita as one word, Pati is one word. That is why we have to consciously use the word pada, subanta or tinganta. Correct. You have Sita here, you have Pati here. But the subanta is only one. There is only one supratyaya which is attached to the combined word. It is not attached independently to either of these words. That is why this is a subanta. Anekasya padasya ekapadi bhavanam. Samasah ityuchyate vishishya anekasya subanta padasya ekapadi bhavanam samasah. तत्र समासे चत्वारि पदानि सामान्यतः अवगन्तव्यानि भवन्ति. समस्तपदं. Samastam means combined. Samastapadam is the combined end product, a single word which is the resultant of a samasa. Tatra samastapade purvapadam uttarapadam. So the samastapada always has components. Because we are combining meaningful words, the component words are still recognizable within a samastapada. It is not like you completely, they don't lose their identity. You can still identify the components, but they do not have independent existence. They are merged. So tatra samastapade prathamaha bhagaha, prathamavayavaha. The first component word of a samasa is called purvapadam. The second component or the last component, charamavayavaha, uttarapadam ityuchyate. So purvapada and uttarapada are the components of a samasa. Once we merge words together, the first component is called purvapada. The last component is called uttarapada. Vigrahavakyam ityukte tu tatra arthakathanam samasa arthapratipadakam vakyam vigrahasanyakam bhavati. To explain the meaning of the samastapada, we use a vyasta prayoga, that is independently using the words. Such a vakya which explains the meaning of a samastapada is called a vigraha vakya. Okay. तमेव उदाहरणं पश्यामः. सीतापतिः इति समस्तपदम् एकमेव पदम्, एकं सुबन्तम् अस्ति. But there you can identify two components. The first component Sita is called Purvapadam. The second component Pati is called Uttarapadam. कः अर्थः सीतापतिः इत्यस्य? सीतायाः पतिः, the husband of Sita इत्यर्थः. Okay. इदं विग्रहवाक्यम् इत्युच्यते. Wherever possible, we use the same components, adding a vibhakti to both components to form the vigraha. How do we get the vigraha vakya? Normally, wherever possible, we use the same words. You take Sita, you take Pati, but to make them independent words, you have to add vibhakti to each of these words. So, if you add vibhakti, they become two separate words and you get the vigraha vakya. Kintu kadachit kim bhavati? Samase yani padani taireva vigrahasya nirmanam na shakyate. Upakrishnam ityapi samastapadam. Asmin samastapade upa iti purvapadam, Krishna iti uttarapadam asti. Remember, when we are talking about Purvapada and Uttarapada, we are talking about the components within the Samasa. Don't consider the Supratyaya. Take out the Supratyaya is there. The merged Samasa is one word. You have the Supratyaya there. So, once you ignore that, you have two component words in which the first component is called Purvapada and the second component is called Uttarapada. Atra Krishnasya samipam ityarthaha. You cannot construct a sentence using this upa independently. Kimartham iti agre kadachit pashyamah. There are reasons. Kintu arthaha kaha iti bodhayitum asmabhihi Krishnasya samipam iti vakyam upayujyate ayameva vigrahaha. So majority times vigraha will have the same words, but sometimes we use some other word. We also use some additional words. All that is okay, because the only purpose of vigraha vakya is to convey the meaning of the samasa. Okay. Say for example here, instead of Krishnasya samipam, you can say Krishnasya antikam. Fine, there is nothing wrong. Where whatever you say, the meaning is conveyed. The words combining here are Upa and Krishna. Okay. Pustaka hastaha iti aparam samastapadam. Tatra pustaka iti purvapadam. Hasta iti uttarapadam. Kaha arthaha atya? Pustaka hastaha balaha gacchati. Ityukte kim? Yasya balakasya haste pustakam asti. He who has a book in his hand. So, etam artham bodhayitum pustakam haste yasya saha. Yasya haste pustakam asti saha ityarthaha. So, it's conventionally expressed this way. He who has he in whose hand there is a book. That is the literal meaning of the compound word called Pustaka Hastaha. Okay. Rama Lakshmana Bharata Shatrughnaha iti samasaha. So here, as I said, usually again 90% of the times in doing a samasa, we combine two words at a time. even as I said, there may be a very long samasa, kintu tatrapi dvayoho melanam eva kriyate. Okay, so it is like you have, say, multiple pieces. So to connect, first you take one piece and connect the second piece to it. Now you have a longer piece. Next you connect one more piece to it. Right? That is how you build, say, a long tower, let's assume. So you're trying to create a tower. So we take two together, and then to the combined one you can add one, or you can take two here combined to form one, two here combined to form one. These two bits you combine, but usually we are always combining two bits together. There are some cases where we can combine multiple bits together, as in this. Ramascha, Lakshmanascha, Bharatascha, Shatrughnascha. Atra ayam amshaha purvapadam ityukte atra Rama ityeva. Prathamavayavaha purvapadam, charamavayavaha antima avayavaha, Shatrughna shabdaha uttarapadam. The remaining two do not have a specific term. They are not useful. Why we identify Purvapada, Uttarapada is there is some modification which happens. Okay. So there we call the Uttarapada especially is the Charamavayava. Only the last component is called as Uttarapada. Vigrahavakyam tu Ramaha cha, Lakshmanaha cha, Bharataha cha, Shatrughnaha cha iti bhavati. Okay. Now, how exactly do we do a samasa? Samasa is a process which involves other internal processes. Adau tatra idanim gananam ishaha iti svikurmaha. So the first component of a samasa, or the beginning of the process of samasa, is two meaningful related words. You cannot simply combine any two random subantas. This is very, very, very important in samasa. Samasaha artham ashritya eva bhavati. Okay, so the two words should be meaningful, should have a relation to each other. Then only they can come together and merge according to the rules. So, niyamaha santi tadanugunam padadvayam subantadvayam svikritya naugananam iti ekam subantam shashti vibhakti bahuvachanantam ishaha iti aparam subantam prathamaikavachanantam. So when we combine them, the first thing which happens as a part of the samasa process is the words lose their original vibhakti pratyayas. Gananam. So gana shabdaha akarantaha pullingaha gana shabdaha shashti bahuvachanantam. So you take gana, that is only the pratipadika. We remove the original vibhakti pratyaya. So the vibhakti pratyaya represents its independent identity as a pada. So when we have to fit them together, you first have to remove that block. So we remove the vibhakti pratyaya from both the words. So as a part of the samasa, both the words lose their original vibhakti pratyayas. So you just have the pratipadika gana, you have the pratipadika isha. So agre kim bhavati iti chet, you have to merge the words to form a single pratipadika. Now merging these may involve sandhi. As you see here, gana, isha, you have akara and you have ikara. Akarasya ikare pare guna sandhihi. So when you do, it becomes Ganesha. So sandhi, there is a lot of confusion. Is Ganesha sandhi or samasa? Right? Very frequently people raise that question. The answer is it is both. So it is a samasa. Samasa is the overall process where we are trying to merge two padas together. As the padas come close, because there is samhita, right? So we have seen samhitaika pade nitya dhaaturoopa-s nitya samase. The moment you bring them close, you cannot keep them apart. Right? It is like the opposite poles. You take two magnets, powerful magnets. If you bring the opposite poles together, once you come close, they immediately fit together to each other. You cannot keep them apart because the force of attraction is so much. So similarly here, because there is samhita, sandhi happens as a part of the samasa. So the process of samasa involves sandhi wherever applicable. The moment you remove the vibhaktis and retain the pratipadikas, if there is a possibility of sandhi between them, sandhi will happen. So many of these words say devalayaha. It is both samasa and sandhi. That is, we are bringing devasya alayaha, two independent padas. When we bring them, they lose the vibhakti. The pratipadika is deva alaya. There we do a sandhi. So sandhi comes along with samasa. They are two different processes, right? So samasa is the whole thing together. So it helps in stripping away the original vibhakti pratyayas. It helps to create an atmosphere for sandhi. There are also other special transformations which can happen here. All that put together is samasa. Sandhi is one part of that cycle. So during samasa, samasa creates conducive environment for sandhi because it brings in compulsory samhita. Sandhi will also happen as a part of samasa. So once we have done the sandhi and other transformations, there are multiple ones we will learn gradually. Then you have a new pratipadika, a single pratipadika. So asya nutana pratipadikasya, whenever you have pratipadika, we can add supratyayas, tada sarvani rupani bhavanti. So just like Rama Shabda gives Ramaha Ramo, Ramaha Ramam, Ramo, Raman, Ganesha is another new pratipadika. Akarantaha pullingaha Ganesha Shabdaha. It will have the complete vibhakti forms according to the anta and linga. So Ganeshaha, Ganeshau, Ganeshaha. So there is a complete new table of vibhakti rupani, which we use in the sentence according to the context. I can say Ganesham Namami or Ganeshena Varahadattaha or Ganeshasya Vahanam Mushikaha and so on. Right? So now this Ganesha is a new Pratipadika, a single independent Pratipadika to which we add a Vibhakti Pratyaya. So it is a Subanta. Okay. Now there are a couple of questions which is very important to know where there is only Sandhi and where there is Samasa. There is a difference, right? Say, for example, I keep quoting this often. Devasya alayaha ityasti. Okay. So where we are not doing a samasa. So we are just saying devasya iti prathak subantam. Akaranta pullinga deva shabdaha shashti ekavachanantam. The identifying factor of non-samasa is the vibhakti pratyaya. if both words have independent vibhakti pratyayas. Right? For example, I put this visarga. So that is the indicator of the pratyaya. Okay. So if both have independent vibhakti pratyayas, it means there is no samasa. Here I can do the sandhi. Right. So devasyalayah. Whereas I can do a samasa, devasya alayah. Then when I do samasa, the immediate thing happens is that the vibhakti is dropped and you have the pratipadikas deva alaya. Here again I do the same sandhi devalaya. Then I add the vibhakti pratyaya to get devalaya. So both cases I am doing savarna dirgha sandhi. किन्तु अत्र देवस्यालयः इति सन्धौ कृते अपि कति पदानि सन्ति इति चेत् पदद्वयमस्ति. Sandhi does not change the pada status. It just brings the letters together. Sandhihi varna karyam. It is just replacing two akaras, akara and akara, by a single akara. There are still two padas here. The first pada is still devasya. The second pada is still alaya. As long as the vibhakti pratyaya is there. Sya iti pratyayah asti, atrapi visargah pratyayasya sakarasya visargah. There the pada status will not change. Sandhihi kritaha kintu atra padadvayam asti. Kintu samase krite devalayah is a single pada. That is the most important and critical difference. So once we do the samasa, we are changing the pada status. It is like we have, we have Lego blocks. So children like playing with the blocks. So you have independent blocks. You can fit them together, but they are still two separate blocks. At any point, you can take them apart. You can maybe fit them in a reverse order. Or say you had one blue block and one red block. You can split them and maybe put two green blocks in between. You can do anything still. So they will fit into each other, which is sandhi. So you can still, they look like they have, there is a sort of contact and they appear like a single word, but they are still independent blocks. You can remove, you can put in reverse order, you can put something in between, a lot of things. Yeah. So compare this to a process where, say, two metal blocks are welded by a carpenter. So he's creating something, or somebody is creating a vessel and there is a handle. You have two components, but the moment you weld them together, right, you put that heat, extra process, you melt it and you weld them together, you can still recognize the two components, right? Say there is a pan and there is a handle. You know that the handle is separate, the pan is separate, but it is one functional entity. You cannot separate it anymore, right? It is one, and you cannot put something in between. You cannot shift that handle to a different place. So samasa is like welding. It fixes the words to their position. In devalaya, you cannot make it alaya devaha. You can say alayaha devasya. As long as the words are separate, you can change positions, or you can put something in between. Devasya ayam alayaha. Devasya sundaraha alayaha. You can do anything. They are still independent components. Whereas once you do a samasa, it is like welding them together to a single component. The position is also fixed. You cannot reverse. You cannot say Pati Sita or Alaya Devaha. Okay. So sometimes the word will not exist. Sometimes the meaning will change. Right. So you cannot change the order. You cannot keep them separate. So in Devasya Alayaha, if I want, I can still keep them separate. Whereas here, you cannot keep them separate. You cannot insert something in between. You have to do a different samasa if you want something in between. But within this samasa, you cannot bring anything new. Right? So samasa is a more higher level of prakriya, which is changing the padas fundamentally. Okay? Sandhi is only it creates a kind of a link between them, which is still breakable, flexible, and many times optional. Whereas samasa, once you do a samasa, you are putting them, binding them together completely without separation. Right? So ayameva sandhi samasayoho bhedaha. एतावता केऽपि प्रश्नाः सन्ति वा? There is a question, is there any compulsion that only the words in the Vakyam are the base of a creation of Vigraha Vakyam? I don't understand. If you mean the words in the Samasta Pada are the base, yes. Mostly wherever possible, you create the Vigraha with the same words. Other words are brought in only if for some reason the existing words cannot be used independently. Okay. So I think that's it. Idam tu samasanam prathamikam jnanam bhavati. Idanim adhyayanartham अस्माकं सर्वदापि अध्ययनार्थं केवलं समासः इत्युक्ते अध्ययनं क्लेशाय. तत्र अवगमनार्थं समासानां विभागः कर्तव्यः भवति. कथं विभागः इत्यत्र अस्माकं पुस्तके, so this is again, please take the book and go through in reference to the book. Samasah sankshepadah shodha bhavati. Shodha ityasya 6 types ityarthah. Shat vidhaah ityarthah. Shadvidhaah samasaah atra darshyante. Tatpurusha samasah, कर्मधारय समासः, द्विगु समासः, बहुव्रीहि समासः, अव्ययीभाव समासः, द्वन्द्व समासः. These are the 6 names of the 6 major types of samasas. Tad bhedaha. Within each of these, there are different types. That is, within Tatpurusha, there are 8 subtypes. Within Karmadharaya, 7. Within Dvigu, 2. Within Bahuvrihi, 7. Within Avyayi Bhava, 2. And within Dvandva, 4. Tatra antaha prabhedaha atra pradarsyante. Tatra adau etesham pramukhanam samasabhedanam avagamanam bhavet. Understanding the key type of samasa. Okay. So as we see, subtypes comes later and can be varied. Okay. But the main type of samasa is fixed. So samasaha ityatra षड्विधाः तत्पुरुषः कर्मधारयः द्विगुः बहुव्रीहिः अव्ययीभावः द्वन्द्वः. So as you can see by the color, technically Karmadharaya and Dvigu are also subtypes of Tatpurusha when we go by the Paninian system. But they do have an independent entity which can be recognized. And all these 6 terms are used by Panini himself. Etaha sanyaha Paninina eva diyante. Tatpurushaha karmadharayaha dviguhu. Bahuvrihihi avyayibhavaha dvandvaha iti. Shat sanyaha api Paninina eva kritaha santi. Okay. So, and as I said, Samasa is Artha Pradhana. Artha is always the key in a Samasa. Without the meaning, you cannot identify the Samasa. So, what is the major meaning of these types? It is very important to understand in the initial stage. Forget about the types. What is each of the Samasa? So we will come from the right because it is easier. So Dvandva Samasa conveys the sense of and. Whenever we say and, that is conjunction of 2 or more objects. Okay. So Udaharanani, Rama Lakshmanau. Rama and Lakshmana, they do something together. Rama Lakshmanau Gachataha or Rama Lakshmanau Vande. I bow to Rama and Lakshmana. There are 2 components and we are connecting them by and logic. Okay. So Brahma Achyuta Shankaraha. Brahma, Achyuta or Vishnu and Shankara. Right? All 3 of them together, who are joined by this and is Dvandva Samasa. Panipadam. So Panipadam Prakshalaya means wash your hands and feet. Okay. Don't worry about the Vachana and all there. Do not get into details right now. So if you've already studied Samasas, so if you have questions right now, why is Panipadam Ekavachana? Don't raise any questions now. Let us get into the Prakarana. We will learn each of these. Then we will see. For now, focus only on the meaning. What does Panipadam mean? Hands and legs. So wherever we are connecting by this and giving equal prominence to both objects, it is called Dvandva Samasaha. So Kakolukam. So we have a tantra in Panchatantra. There are 5 tantras in Panchatantra. So one of them is called Kakolukiyam. Kaka Uluka. Kaka means crows. Uluka means owls. So crows and owls. So that whole chapter goes through the story of the enmity between a band of crows and a band of owls. So Kakolukam means crows and owls. So Yatra Yatra Evam Chartha. That is how Panini defines Dvandva also. So combining 2 equal components using and is Dvandva Samasa. Saha Arthaha eva Pradhanam Bhavati. Okay. Avyayi Bhava Samase Kim Bhavati iti chet. So Avyaya, we usually have a component Avyaya, that is the whole word is also an Avyaya. One of the components is an Avyaya. Majority, we do have some Avyayi Bhavas where there is no Avyaya. But most of the times we have an Avyaya which conveys an abstract sense or meaning of some prepositions. For example, Upakrishnam. So Upakrishnam is not an object. It means near Krishna. Right. So there is Krishna. We want to locate something near him. So that is a preposition. Say on, above, near, similar to that. So Nirmashakam refers to absence of mosquitoes. So you have mosquitoes. You are not talking about mosquitoes, you are talking about the absence of mosquitoes, which is an abstract sense related to one of the words, right? So the avyaya always conveys, there is one Krishna. So upa is an avyaya which conveys something related, something abstract or a prepositional sense related to Krishna. So nirmashakam. Mashaka means mosquito. Nir is an avyaya which conveys the absence, the meaning of absence of the mashaka. Adhihari. Hari is Vishnu. The avyaya adhi conveys in Vishnu, the prepositional sense of in or within Vishnu. Yatha Shakti. So Shakti means strength. So Yatha Shakti means according to the strength. Whatever is the strength, we will try to the best limits of the strength. So where you can identify an avyaya conveying an abstract sense, such a samasa is called avyayi bhava samasa. The uniqueness here is the samasta pada is also an avyaya. The name derives from avyaya. So dvandva is very obvious. It means dual. So pair, as if. So two things conveyed by and, whereas avyayi bhava mostly has an avyaya and also it generates an avyaya. So again, all these are general statements. Please don't take anything as absolute. I am not making any absolute statements here. I am just trying to give you clues to identify the main type of samasa. There will always be some exceptions. There will always be special rules. So I think the group was filled with discussions about exceptions in Sandhi-s. Similarly, when we get into Samasa, there will be exceptions, but knowing the general is much more important than knowing to Samasa. Okay. Now, next we have Bahuvrihi. Okay. So for Bahuvrihi, the key component is Anya Padartha. Anya means other. Padartha means a meaning or an object. So Bahuvrihi is a unique component where we are referring to something other than the components of the Samastapada. So if the Samastapada has two components, when we bring them together, combined, they refer to some connected one. It can't be some random object. Okay. So we'll see through examples. Pitambaraha. Pita means yellow. Ambara means cloth. But when I say Pitambaraha, I mean a person with an yellow cloth. Okay. So very common example is, for example, in Kannada especially, politicians used to be referred to as Gandhi topi. It used to be a characteristic feature. So you have Gandhi had a certain kind of this hat or that cloth cap. So politicians, when I say that word, though those two words convey something else, they imply a connected object. Together, they refer to something which is other than themselves. So, Pitambaraha refers to a person who is wearing a yellow cloth or who has yellow cloths, habitually wears it. It is a name of Vishnu. Vishnu is traditionally represented as wearing the yellow garment, yellow silk garment called Pitambara. So when I say Pitambaraha Agataha, I am not saying yellow cloth has come. I am saying a person who is wearing a yellow cloth has come. So Pita Ambara refer to somebody who possesses the yellow garment. The possessor is the connection. It is not the direct word. Similarly, when I say Bahupalaha, I am Amra Vrikshaha. So this Bahupalaha refers to a tree which has many fruits. It does not say just that there are many fruits. It refers to Anya Padartha, a different Padartha. Here you have many and fruits. Whereas what I want to convey is a tree in which there are many fruits. Okay. Similarly, when I say Datta Dhanaha, Datta means given, Dhana means money. I am talking to the recipient of the money which was given. I am not talking about the money itself. I am talking about the recipient of that money. That is why all these are categorized as Bahuvrihi Samasas. Anya Padartha is the key word for Bahuvrihi. If you cannot show an Anya Padartha, it will not be Bahuvrihi. So Pita Kshira. Pita means drunk. Kshira means milk. Okay. So it does not refer to milk itself. It refers to a person who has drunk milk. Pitam Kshiram Yena Saha. Okay. So the identifying feature of Bahuvrihi is the component words being connected to something else. Okay. So again, I'll come back to some of these words when I come to Karmadharaya. So for now, please try to take this in with an open mind. Of course, there are confusions, there are problems. We'll come to all that later. Okay. But these key identifying features we need to understand to be able to put a samasa into one of these buckets. Next, we have Dvigu. So what does Dvigu samasa convey? A number. The first identifying feature of Dvigu is a number as the first component, that is Purvapada. But in addition to number, there is an additional sense, a sense of, for example, Shanmaturaha. So, Shanmaturaha refers to Kartikeya. Shat is the number component of it. So 6 mothers. So again here it does not refer to just 6 mothers. There is a kind of combined tadhita pratyaya there. Like we say Dasharathi, the son of Dasharatha. So here it is the son of 6 mothers is called Shanmaturaha. Okay. Panchakapalaha. A havis which is prepared in 5 pots is called Panchakapalaha. Panchavati. So a group of 5 trees is called Panchavati, 5 Vatavrakshas. Triloki. The 3 lokas together as a group is called Triloki. So Dvigu Samasa is identified by the number. Then we have Karmadharaya Samasa, where the key one is adjective. That is, there is only one padartha. So one is qualified by the other. Right? So it can be Purvapada, Uttarapada, etc. And qualified, when I say qualified, it can be as a direct adjective. It can be as a comparison. You are comparing something to something else, or you are giving a specific name to something. All these are cases of qualifying. Say there is a tree, Vrikshaha. If I say Amra Vrikshaha, a tree named Amra, so the name is also an attribute of Vriksha. Right? If I say it is a tall tree, the tallness is an attribute of the Vriksha. If I say something like the tree which is um, tall like or a person who is tall like a tree. So that is again, the tree is an attribute to the person. So wherever one word, one component qualifies the other component, that is called karmadharaya samasa. Right? So Neela Meghaha, a dark cloud. So Neela is an adjective to Megha. When I say Naravyagraha, a human like the tiger. So here the tiger is actually a comparison, but it is serving as an attribute to the man. That is, whatever the tiger, so a tiger like man. Okay? So we are still referring to the man. We are qualifying the man, saying he has shared properties with the, or shared attributes with the tiger, like bravery or courage, whatever. Okay. So here we come to this word pitambaram. So the difference. So there is again the most common question in Samasa is, how do I know the difference? That is the meaning. So there are some cases where, for example, Pitam Ambaram. If you want to just refer to the cloth and say the cloth is yellow, Aham Pitambaram Krinami. I buy. What do I buy? I buy an ambara, a cloth which is yellow. There is only the cloth which is qualified by the adjective of yellow, then it will be Karmadharaya. If I refer to a person wearing this pitambara, it will be bahuvrihi. So you can have the same word in both, the meaning is different. If you have the question, how do I know the meaning? Context. So context is key to samasa. How are we using it? For example, when I say aham pitambaram krinami, I cannot buy a person with a yellow cloth. I buy a yellow cloth. From the context, it is evident that what is meant is a cloth which is yellow. Whereas dhruvaha pitambarasya vishnoho darshanam prapya santushtaha. There, very clearly, pitambara means Vishnu. Right? So there, yellow cloth is not Vishnu. So Vishnu is a person with the yellow cloth. So when you have to connect to it, based on the context only, you can decide. Similarly, if I say bahuni phalani, bahu phalani, aham bahu phalani khaditavati, which means I ate many fruits. What I mean is fruits qualified by many. Then if it is used as an adjective directly and I mean that object itself, it is karmadharaya. But if I am looking at a tree and saying, aho, I am bahuphalaha vrikshaha, then obviously I am not referring only to the multiple fruits. I am referring I am by saying he or that object. I am conveying that I am referring to a tree with multiple fruits, right? So I deliberately included these because without meaning, you cannot decide a samasa. The same word pitambara, if you just take it, could be bahuvrihi, could be karmadharaya. There is a very popular shloka also with the same one. There is a beggar goes to a king and he composes a shloka. He says, Aham cha tvancha Rajendra Lokanathau Ubhavapi. He says, O king, you are also Lokanatha. I am also Lokanatha. Okay. So he says, both of us are the same, but the meaning, is it the same? No. So then he says, Bahuvrihi Raham Rajan Shatti Tatpurusho Bhavan. But the difference is, I am a Bahuvrihi and you are a Shatti Tatpurusha. What does that mean? So if we take a quick look, so what is he saying? Aham cha tvancha Rajendra Lokanatha Vubhavapi. So I am also a Lokanatha. You are also a Lokanatha. Right? So Lokanathaha Bhikshukaha Lokanathaha Raja. And how does he justify it? So he says, Aham Bahuvrihi. I am a Bahuvrihi, whereas you are a Shashti Tatpurusha. We will see the Tatpurusha one. So what does Bahuvrihi mean? Anya Padartha. So you have Lokaha Nathaha. Loka, the world, is master to somebody else. Obviously, since Bahuvrihi means Anya Padartha, it does not refer to Loka, the world. It does not refer to master. It refers to somebody. Yasya. He whose master is Loka. That is, the Bhikshuka is under the mercy of the entire world. The entire world is his Natha. That is, they have to give him alms or food and take care of him. That is why Lokaha Nathaha Yasya Saha as a Bahuvrihi refers to a beggar. Whereas directly if we take Lokasya Nathaha, master of the world. So master is the king. The king is the master. So there it is a different samasa. So if randomly you take Lokanatha and ask which samasa, it cannot be answered because the samasa depends on the context, on the meaning. Okay. So learning samasa is anyonyashraya. Right? So first we learn about what are the possible kinds of samasas. We learn what is the meaning conveyed. Then we go to a context and try to understand the meaning. Based on it, we understand the samasa. Right? So it is not a standalone thing. You cannot learn samasas in a standalone way. That is exactly what this current book, the approach of Samaasakusumaavali is. It does not teach standalone words. It, or rather, the person who wrote the book, he has composed shlokas so that it gives a context for the samasa. So that is why it is a very good way of learning samasas, because we will be studying the words in context. So in science also we have this in situ. There are some experiments which you can't perform in just a lab. You have to go to a particular place. Say you want to measure, say, pollution in a river. You have to go to that place and conduct the experiment there. It cannot be done in a lab. So even samasa, generally rules we can learn, some of the important words we can learn as pure grammar, but the actual understanding of any samasa can come only when we apply it to the context in a kavya or in a sentence. The last kind, tatpurusha. So something which is not all these is tatpurusha. Okay. So where the major thing is dominant uttarapada. Right? So what we see in other kinds of tatpurusha is there is a dominant uttarapada which is directly related to a purvapada through usually some other vibhakti. What I mean is, say Raja Purushaha means a Purusha. He is a person who is in the service of the king. Rajyaha Purushaha. He is a man of the king, belonging to the king. That is Rajyaha. So there is a Shashti relation with the Purvapada. Shrita is a person who has taken refuge. So always the meaning of Tatpurusha is the Uttarapada. So Shritaha is a person who has sought refuge. To whom has he gone for refuge? To Krishna. So Krishnam Shritaha, he who has resorted onto Krishna. Vyagra bhitihi. Bhitihi means fear. So Vyagra bhitihi means fear. Fear from what? From the tiger. So fear of the tiger. Vyagrat bhitihi. But everywhere Raja Purusha is a Purusha. Okay. So Pitambaraha is not an ambara. Ambara means cloth. So Pitambaraha does not mean a cloth. That is the difference between Bahuvrihi and Tat Purusha. Whereas Raja Purusha is a Purusha. Krishna Shrita is a Shrita. Or if you say Krishna Bhakta, he is a Bhakta. Vyagra Bhiti is Bhiti. Aksha Shaunda. Shaunda means a person who is very clever or cunning. So Aksha Shaundaha is a cunning person. What is he good at? He is good at gambling. So a person who is very skilled at gambling is called Aksha Shaunda. Right? So the dominant Uttarapada is the identifying feature of Tat Purusha, where the Purva Pada is related to through a different vibhakti. It is not a direct adjective. That is why Karmadharaya is a subtype of Tat Purusha. Here also, Pitambara is a cloth which is yellow. So if you are giving an adjective, it becomes Karmadharaya. If you are showing the relation to something else, it becomes Tat Purusha. Okay. So these are the 6 major types of Samasas. Okay. So there is one similar for the Lokanatha. There is another popular one, Jagad Guru, which has been given. So it can be Jagataha Guruhu, the Guru of the world, or Jagat Guruhu Yasya Saha, he to whom the entire world is a Guru. That is, he who learns from the entire world. There are a lot of puns using the different samasas, etc. Okay. Now coming back. So once we know the 6 major types, let me tell you in Samasa, the key thing is to get this main type. There are subtypes. So as we saw in the table, there are different numbers of subtypes for each Samasa. The purpose of these. So we will get into each of these in detail as we go through the book. But the important thing about this classification, especially the subtype classification, it is not all encompassing. All types of samasas are not covered in these subtypes. Okay, the 6 main types are, as I said, given by Panini. They cover majority. Apart from these, there is one which does not fall into these categories called Kevala Samasa. Other than that, there is nothing. So that level, first level is comprehensive, other than Kevala Samasa. But the second level is not comprehensive. It is not meant to be comprehensive. So as I said, Paninian classification gives 4 main types. Avyayi bhava, tatpurusha, bahuvrihi, dvandva, and karmadharaya dvigu are names given by Panini himself for subtypes in tatpurusha. So these 6 are fine, but below that, the purpose of those subclassifications is only for understanding, and you will see lot of variation if you take different books. If you take the Samasa book by Mahabaleshwar Bhatt, the number of subtypes may be different. If you take Samasa Chakram, the number of subtypes may be different. All that is only to help understand. There is no right or wrong. All of them are the same. Okay, it is finally what you call like in Advaita. All things may look different, but ultimately it's all the same. So till you reach the Paninian Sutra and understand, map these subtypes to sutras, there can be variations. Don't worry about them. Okay, and especially I think already I saw some 5 or 6 questions which said that book says Karmadharaya has 9 types, this book says Dvandva has 2 types. All that does not matter. As long as you get the Samasta Pada right and the Vigraha right, and you are able to identify it to the 6 major components, you are fine. That is all is required. But the subtypes are there to help us spot the pattern. Each subtype has a pattern. Once we train, it is, like AI, it is the buzzword these days. What happens in AI? There is a training, right? There is a data set for training. The AI is trained on those data sets. Finally, when you give a new problem, based on the patterns, the intelligence that it has developed, based on the training material, it will be able to deal with new material. That is exactly how we learn Samasas. We use a set of training material. That is all it is. So it will show patterns. So it needs large data. So we see some data, we take the data and we process it, and the brain develops patterns. Once those patterns are set, whenever you take a shloka, a new text, we apply it and we understand how we can split it. So the training data helps us in knowing, okay, these are the possibilities. Now let me analyze what is the context, what is the meaning, and let me see if I can get the Vigraha Vakya right. That is how Samasa works. It is not pure theory. It is also not pure practical. That does not mean we can directly take a work and start splitting Samasas. We need some training. And these subtypes, the subtypes mainly are meant for this training. Once we do this, once we have enough data, so there are a lot of cases where they say AI does go wrong, right? So the chat GPT you give, it gives some hallucinated answer. Why does it go wrong? Because its training data did not include some of the types. Okay. So that is possible. We just have to keep learning or getting that data to finally uh, be able to parse Samasas. Okay. So I think we will stop here. I wanted to then, okay, I'll just introduce Samaasakusumaavali, which is the text, a very small booklet prescribed by the Chittoor Sabha, which has shlokas. Shloka Rupaha Sangraha Grantha. It is a condensed text in the form of shlokas, which uses the Samasas. So, Udaharana Dvara Samasa Prabheda Shikshanam. Purely through examples. It does not give any rules at all. Okay, unlike Sandhi. So, Sandhi, the assumption is in the initial classes or levels, we have learnt the Sandhis. Now we go to the rules. Whereas Samasa here is not rules, it is examples for each type. So, for each Samasa and the subtype, there is a shloka which uses तस्मिन् श्लोके तस्य समासस्य उदाहरणानि भवन्ति तत् समानानि अन्यानि उदाहरणानि. So it is, we capture important examples of each type so that when we encounter a new word, we can map to one of these types. Okay. So niyamaha atra na dattaha vayamapi niyaman vistarena na pathamaha मुख्यतः समासस्य परिचयार्थम इमे पाठाः भवन्ति. Okay. So in the next class we will start with the actual shlokas of Samaasakusumaavali. Do the Mangalam, then whatever questions I will see what we can cover here. गुरुरेव गतिर्गुरुमेव भजे गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोर्मतिरस्ति गुरौ मम पाहि गुरो वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्